You're investing heavily in your future, which runs EBITDA down but ramps growth up. Or maybe the flip side is true. You're increasing your EBITDA, but it's at the expense of your growth. Either way, you have a problem, and the rule of 40 is the solution.
This is The Rare Advisor, proud to be a part of the Advisor Advancement Network and home of a business model supercharged by recurring and repeatable events. Your host is Mike Walters, CEO of USA Financial. He is an investment advisor representative of and securities are offered through USA Financial Securities, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
So you're investing heavily in the future of your business, which is running your EBITDA right down the drain. Or maybe the flip is true. Maybe you're trying to increase your EBITDA and it's coming at the expense of growth. So either way, you've got yourself a pretty significant problem. And I will contend that a solution, if not the solution, is the rule of 40. So, if you're looking at evaluation of a business, especially a practice, or you're just trying to get a good measuring stick of, are you growing? Are you doing the right things? Is the thing heading in the right direction? One of the things people always want to look at is EBITDA. And it's always driven me crazy because we've been a high growth organization. USA Financial, for example, is a 5-time recipient of the Inc. 5000 award. And it's hard enough to be an Inc. 5000 winner one time. The elite group that has done it 5 times is like astronomically small. So we're a 5-time recipient of that, which generally means we plow a lot back into the business because we want it to grow for the future. We want to build a better mousetrap, and we want to have that enjoyment factor that comes with growth and the ability to share that out with the benefits that we create for advisors affiliated with us. Just our philosophy. We're not trying to be a cash cow. We're trying to be a very dynamic, high growth company. And sometimes that comes at the cost of EBITDA. So how do you now identify that? You can just point to a number and say, well, we're growing, but that's what a .com would have done back in the day, or today, some kind of a robo type vehicle. They're not making any money. They may have no chance of ever making any money, but they can look at a line that has some growth attached to it and they can project that out. And so then they try to, go raise money with these IPOs on these unprofitable companies where everybody has to keep plowing money in. And then, at the end of the day, some will make it and a whole bunch won't. And it's because they weren't running a profitable business. They had no EBITDA. They were going negative all the time. So somewhere there's got to be a balance in here. And one of the balancing items is something I've kind of become fond of. It's called the rule of 40. The rule of 40 is a trade-off, if you will, between profits and growth, between EBITDA and growth. Generally speaking, now again, you can define this different ways. There's different ways to define profit. There's different ways to define growth. I'm going to say that, the good starting point would be EBITDA is your profit and growth is your revenue, right? So if I'm looking at this teeter-totter, I've got profit is going down because growth is going up. I've got this rule of 40 trade-off, if you will. And this kind of came out of the tech industry simply because of what I was talking about. With tech, as they're growing this, they have a lot of growth, but their EBITDA maybe wasn't that strong. And so how do you figure out, well, is the business legitimate? Is it holding water? This would be a good starting point, the rule of 40, because as profits are getting kind of pushing down on things, growth is kind of pushing up on the other side. So the question is, how do we combine that? And it's pretty simple. If we take our growth percentage, add it to our profit percentage, we want to come in at 40. A little below, or even better, come in above. But 40 is the number. It's kind of the pivot point, or the numeric that's being targeted. That's why it's called the rule of 40. So, depending on, again, what industry you're in, financial services, a financial advisory practice, statistics that we have pulled in the past from data sources at Investment News, basically would lead one to believe that the average financial practice should be able to get 27% to its bottom line, 27% EBITDA, so to speak. But We also know that, let's say you're smaller, you're running it as a sole proprietorship, you might be simply taking all of that out, and that's how you pay yourself. So your EBITDA ends up being very, very low, even though your revenue is growing every year and your income is growing every year. And the flip side might be true. Maybe you're running strictly AUM. You really aren't bringing on new clients. You're just kind of, servicing the block of business. You're turning it into that cash cow I alluded to earlier. And so now you don't really have any growth taking place, but you've got really good EBITDA. So you're always going to want to look at a business from different lenses. The more things you can measure, the better that business is going to grow. And that's a whole nother discussion on marathons versus sprints. But you can grow the quickest based on the number of things you're measuring. In other words, I can grow 5 things by 5% to get 25% a lot quicker than I can grow 1 thing by 25%. That's a whole nother conversation. I've done a video or 2 on that in the past. Take a look at the library. But for now, let's talk about combining those 2 numbers. Maybe you've got a good balance. Maybe you've got some good growth rate. You're hitting double digits on a pretty regular basis, and you've got some solid EBITDA. So now you can put those 2 together, and maybe you don't have 27% EBITDA, but maybe let's just say you've got 15% EBITDA, but you've got 30% growth. Well, that's 45% on our rule of 40. Or maybe you've got 20% EBITDA. Somebody'd say, oh, you're a little short, but you've got 20% growth, and you're right dead on for the rule of 40. Or maybe it goes, the other way. Maybe you've got 27% EBITDA just like you're supposed to, but then you're still hitting double-digit growth regularly, let's say 10%. So, now you're coming in with a strong EBITDA, and you're creeping right up on the rule of 40 again. So it gives a good way to balance things out. Again, it's growth percentage plus profit percentage, so your revenue growth plus your EBITDA, to see how close you are to 40. That is the rule of 40. And it's called the rule of 40 trade-off, because oftentimes to generate more profits, we have to sacrifice some growth. Or the opposite is true. To generate more growth, sometimes we have to sacrifice some profits. So the rule of 40 helps cut through that to figure out what's really going on in your business.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.